Thank you so much. That introduction sounds heavy. Genuinely inspired by the vision for Jobs for Her, and genuinely thrilled to see a group of people here who are committed to this mission in some form or the other. Some of you may be just beginning on this mission, some of you may be working on this. Some of you may be here to just explore what does it mean for me, irrespective of if you are in this journey. And both as a woman, both as a leader, as an Indian, with so much out there for India, this is a really, really exciting time. So that was the topic that was shared with me, gender roles and their influence on equity. Every word is so critical there. So what I did was, as a preparation to this conversation with you all, I said, let me start exploring what really gender means, what does gender role look like, and what is equity in this context. So it was a very insightful journey for myself, because I think that's another lesson. We all believe we know a certain amount of things about any of these concepts. It's so good to refresh. So what I realized is, gender itself is a confusing term. A lot of us confuse between sex and gender. Male and female is sex given by nature. Gender is what you identify with. Why did I go on that path? Typically, as soon as you think of gender roles when it comes to talking about diversity, you're talking of the same stereotypes of men being providers, women being nurturers, and how does that affect our professional workspace. I wanted to go one level deeper. And what I realized is this fact that gender is about what we associate ourselves with really plays a big role in the way we perceive our own journeys. I thought that was a really, really insightful idea for me. The way this conversation is going to go in the next 30 minutes is, I'm going to share what I have learned as part of my journey and what I have been inspired by others, leave you with some ideas and thoughts. I don't think I am an expert here. What I can do is share my story. So for me, the fact that gender itself is something which is not fixed, apart from the gender fluidity part of it, the role itself is not fixed. And we are seeing a lot of blurring of those lines even in today's society, right? While we saw a lot of statistics that Neha spoke about, it's also changing quite a bit. What does that mean, and how do I, as a woman, as an individual, evolve, has been a question I've tried to explore in this subsequent slides. Now, if we talk of gender evolution, it would be remiss if we don't look at the progress that we have had in the so-called participation, contribution of women in various sectors. Some pictures still look abysmal, but some pictures are really positive. For example, yesterday there was a note I think Bill Gates had put together on his India visit. One of the things he calls out, if any of you have read it, is he says across the world, India has done something amazingly beautiful. Apart from all the vaccination and health campaigns, he speaks of one particular statistic, which is, if you look at, India has had this unique problem of unbanked population, which is 70 to 80% of Indians did not have a financial identity, right? And guess who was really the victim of that the most? Of course, there were men, but almost 90% of the women were not even banked. And with this whole unbanked to bank, the Jan Dhan concept that was brought together, for the first time, males and females and people who do not identify themselves with either of the genders, all of them are at 78% of having a financial identity and being backed. That's an amazing, amazing metric. In my own lifetime, I've seen 10 years ago what it was in India versus now. So I think there are pockets of brilliance going on that we need to celebrate. Second, if you look at Indian IT, which probably a lot of us belong to, has been called out as one of the industries which has had some really successful attempts and a very, very positive trend of inclusion of women not just in entry-level roles, because we've been doing well there, but also mid-level roles. We need to do a lot more to get to the top. I wanted to start my conversation with these two positive stats because this applies to us in the room. But if you take a step back and look at macro level view, I wanted us to just look at some of these upcoming stats together. It talks of women's contributions in sectors we typically don't look at women for. Like I said, some of them are very negative. Some of them are very interesting. I hope people at the end can see. So this is from United Nations Women, and they track these numbers very, very regularly. The first chart talks about women parliamentarians worldwide. Idea is how do you look at decision makers, women, being women, because then you are influencing women. That's the hypothesis. It's been consistently raising across the world. It's somewhere about 25% as of 2020. Is it a great number? But it started from an era where women were not even allowed to vote, in many countries. So for me, that's a really, really positive trend. We don't look at this as often because we look at, okay, how many people on the board, how many are CEOs, absolutely important stats. But this is where women are changing nations, changing countries. Something to really look forward to. Especially as our next generation is becoming so much aware, so much more socially conscious. For me, this was a real positive step. The second speaks of women CEOs in Fortune 500. Many of you may be aware of this. Here we are still lacking very badly. As organizations, we are the ones who have the loudest voice talking of diversity and bringing women to workplace. This is where we continue to lack. I think Neha spoke of a lot of reasons and opportunities that we have. I'll not repeat them. But even at 2015, 2020, we are less than 5%. In Fortune 500, imagine what happens down the line. This is for me an abysmal stat. I want to look at STEM specifically. We all get stats around how many women enter in STEM, how many are taking up core science. I wanted to see how many are going to the pinnacle of science, which is Nobel Prizes. Not just science, it talks of literature and everything. If you look at it, we've really not done much. The visual may be hard to see, but it shows a bunch of dots wherever we've had Nobel Prize winners. Essentially, peace is the only segment where we've had a lot more women Nobel laureates. STEM, literature, physics, chemistry, medicine, abysmally low. Imagine, so it's not just about staying at the foundation, are you reaching the pinnacle? Kind of revalidates the story Neha spoke about. So there is a leaky pipeline even in there. But interestingly, you look at sports. Olympic Games, as of now, we are almost 50% women. That's tremendous. But you also look at it, there was a very systemic change done. Sometime, several decades ago, you had a women's section of events starting to come together. Possibly one of the triggers. But the fact is, across every sport, every activity in Olympics, we are close to 45 to 50% is an amazing stat. The reason I'm trying to show you a contrasting set across multiple verticals is you see that there are some which have some systemic changes, some we are naturally growing in, some where we are doing a lot of work, we are still not growing in. Certainly something to look at. This one was super interesting for me. If I go back to gender role, naturally women apparently are known for culinary skills. It's associated as part of our nurturing ability. So I said, let me look at chefs. Michelin star is your highest. So let's see how many female Michelin star chefs. I'm sure I'm spelling that wrong in French, but yeah. When we look at it, as of now, 5 women. That's it. 5. And this is supposed to be our field. So it's clearly not about skill. It's clearly not just about competency. There's so much more at work there, right? It also talks of what do we need to really teach women, us, to really grow if this is our success metric. The last one, entertainment and media. I believe this has been one of the industries, irrespective of any movie, fiefdom you take, Hollywood, Bollywood, Tollywood, women have played a very significant role from a very long time, even from when the movies were not talkies. But even here, if you look at again recognition, Academy Awards, which are considered as a pinnacle of recognition, you have just one director, women director who's been recognized. Doesn't it show so awfully on us as a society? So I'm hoping these pictures and visuals are triggering some thoughts in you. What triggered in me was this. Number one, it's not so much about our biases or understanding of a certain fields for women versus others. It's not clearly it is showing, right? Second is a very, very specific pattern coming out is it's not again about skills and competencies. There is a systemic challenge of almost a deliberate attempt of not just encouraging but almost discouraging. That's how I feel it, right? So we have a lot of heavy lifting to do. While let's look at our own world, which is corporates. I did speak of positive trends, but in my belief, we have grown up in this society. We are surrounded by this entertainment industry. We are surrounded by these kind of decision makers. So we are naturally influenced to continue to have biases. So with this, I want to kind of start our journey inwards. Neha beautifully spoke about what we can do as part of community, as part of organizations. I want to kind of go inward and say, what can I do for myself? So with that, so my question was, let me start with me. How do I? Yes, it can also be how might we. We should do that. But as a step one, let's start with how do I. Enable was the word I called it out because in my mind, this is an evolution. It's moving, it's a journey. So how do I enable myself in this journey despite all this was the narrative. Pardon me for a cheesy acronym that I've come up with, but the points are very critical. So let's start with what is progress. What is progress when we talk of the whole diversity journey? Representation clearly is, but it is still a leading indicator. Is it the outcome, right? So I was trying to get into a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? So which is, if you really look at progress, ideally we should be looking at color, race and gender only as a God-given gift to us, nothing to do with what we can do in life. For me, that's progress. It seems a very idyllic goal to get. But if we don't have an idyllic goal, we will always be stuck in incremental progress, isn't it? So I wanted to start here. If I want to enable myself, more and more I started discovering about whether it's my journey or several other people around me who had some tremendous journeys, beautiful journeys, very inspiring ones. I found out that it all comes down to understanding ourselves. This is not a spiritual discussion, but truly, if I don't, so awareness in my mind comes at 3 levels. Number one, awareness of what I am good at, what I am not good at, and how do I approach when I am hit with a conflict or a problem. Second is very important to understand how do others perceive me. Whether that should affect me or not is a different discussion. If I am not understanding how the world perceives me, I'm going to go in a very unilateral path of this is what success looks like. Which means probably a lot of traits of so-called successful CEOs, who most of them are males today. Maybe that's what we are trying to replicate, but is that really going to get us success? Is an example. So important to understand the world's view of us. The third is also important to understand how we perceive the world. When you perceive the world as a hard place, as a place where you have to fight, your approach to solving, growing becomes different. When you look at the world as this is the place that I need to win, you look at it very differently. When you look at the world and you say, I just need to survive, nothing more, you look at your journey very differently. So it's super important to understand all the three lives. The reason I'm talking about this, whether it is us as individual women or men, or us as HR leaders, or us as people leaders or business leaders, if we don't understand that about us, forget the impact on us. It will impact our industry, our organization, our community, our family. But awareness has to go to the next level, which is when being really comfortable about who you are. So being authentic is a fairly overused concept, but in my mind it's very simple. I'm an engineer at heart. So you have a current state, you have a future state. If you don't understand the gaps, how will you even move? So if I'm not understanding where I am and what is my true self, how do I equip myself to be as part of a success? That's what I mean by authentic. It also means being our best self. What do I mean? I'll go back to my other example. Probably 2 decades ago, or even as recently as a decade and a half ago, the mantra of a successful CEO or mantra of a successful person on the board, all of them looked very, very similar archetypes. A charismatic, outgoing, innovator, somebody who can address a room, somebody who's an alpha male, and alpha male was not called out but an alpha personality. These were all traits, if you all remember, right? I hope you all can relate to this. So that's the image that used to hit us most times, right? What does it mean? We are following an ideology, which means we are creating more and more clones of what we are trying to move away from. If we as women have to outshine our own selves have to come out, right? We should be our best version and still grow. We can't change ourselves, isn't it? For us, for me, that was the biggest inflection point, both in my own career journey. At some point, I was emulating what I thought was success, of male role models who were doing the best and who were they were on the fast track, they were doing everything, they were the celebrated heroes. And there was a point when I said, no, I have to get comfortable with myself and work on what makes sense. My journey will be different from all the other people. So that's what I mean by authenticity. And it's so important because this leads to the confidence, which Neha spoke about as well. This is where I feel a lot of women I meet with as part of my teams, my community, a lot of my mentees, myself, and even in my family, we naturally put ourselves down because we have very high expectations of ourselves. So that image was very powerful for me if you look at it. We're always trying to reach up. I'm not talking on the behalf of males, but that's what the image looks at. But there is a natural confidence, maybe because the way the society faces, maybe because of the way we perceive. But from women, I can tell you, we always are reaching up, a lot of times. I do see that changing in the newer generation, which I'm so happy about. But in my mind, that confidence gap is something which no amount of skilling and mentoring alone can give you. It is an inward journey. All of this put together builds that. And if we don't do that, if we don't enable that for our teams, I feel everything else is truly supplementary. How do we remove these biases in our heads as leaders? That's a secondary step. As a first step, if I'm not aware of it, how do I put myself up? So confidence in my mind across all of this is probably at the heart of it all. Everything we do has to be about creating our own confidence ramp, right? And it has to keep ramping up. And we should know that we will never know everything, which we should be absolutely be okay with. Last is building traction, and I'm a big believer in it. I have a very, very big bias for action, but I also think, you all must have heard of this, right? Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. And that happens if you're consistent at it. Any so-called successful person, content person, peaceful person, person whom you think is your role model, look at it, consistency in doing what they do, continuously hitting at it, continuously redefining success, and almost this cycle of rebuilding confidence is what's going on. So with that, I kind of said, we have to make a pact for ourselves, right? If we want progress, our definition of progress, we have to be extremely comfortable with ourselves and continue to sharpen our axe, not somebody else's. Second, this will lead to creating confidence. It will lead building traction. Success goes back into progress and this becomes a cycle, a beautiful cycle. So while this was an internal journey, I also put together what could be some of the thoughts if you put yourself in a leadership position. So if you have to enable your team, so the first concentric circle, me, second team, third family, fourth community, fifth country, sixth universe. So you define your circles, right? So if I have to enable my team, number one, when I said mentoring, it's mentoring and being mentored. And this is where I wanted to be very, very clear. It's not about women only. I know we need some specific interventions. We need interventions across our workforce. More and more we qualify and do it for a certain cohort. We are eliminating the chance of harmonizing. And this is a big, big change we are trying to bring in our own organizations, our teams as to how do I continuously do this? Interventions can be different, but it has to be done at all the cohorts. And especially for an example, right? I have received probably about 100 invitations on my LinkedIn asking for being mentored. 80 of them are from men, 20 women. Tells me again that as women we are not comfortable going and asking for help. So as organizations, as leaders, we have to find the way to create those intimate safe spaces because that's how we are built. So instead of saying, no, go and do it like the other population, we should be saying, no, this is how we are. This is what I'm saying, being authentic. Enable systems here. Meritocracy, I think everybody in this room understands. I will not get into it. Empowerment comes at multiple levels, right? We started talking about empowering ourselves, but it's also about how do you empower your leaders, your teams. Not only about their day-to-day work and activity and delivery, but also empower them on how do they want to reshape the culture of the organization when we say diversity. I've seen a lot of us having a prescribed set of rules when we think what is diversity. In my mind, involving the entire organization redefining has been very, very successful experiment for us. I would encourage all of you leaders continue to do that. I think skilling pillar, we spoke about it. The only comment I will make about skilling pillar is, let's have skilling interventions which are very customized to women. Our learning methodology is different. We are a different kind of learners. So while you have these visual learners, auditory learners, etc., women have a different learning methodology. This is proven when you study our nervous system. Women learn better in smaller groups. Women learn better by sharing. Celebration is very key. It's not that women are asking for validation, but when you look at somebody being celebrated, you naturally want to emulate. These are our personality traits. It's very critical to understand when you're skilling, what is the outcome? Method has to be personalized. It's exactly like how you're building a product. You're building the product for the user, not because you have the greatest product. So I would encourage, while I have shared the thoughts, I would encourage all of you to think through and expand the circles. I put these as questions and not really wanting the answers. Because ultimately we have to enable our families. We have to enable our communities. Community building itself is such a fulfilling experience, and personally I've had that amazing experience in the last decade. Working with people, working with women, men, beyond your circle of work or circle of family, building communities is extremely fulfilling, and it's a natural form of networking. I would encourage each one in this room to go and do that. How do you enable your country? We have so much coming in from the policy making, from the governments. There may be a few here, I know most of you are from multiple organizations, but you or your teams may have entrepreneurial ambitions. There is so much that's coming up. Today, less than 8% of women-led businesses are being funded. Why? And when I speak to some of my investor friends, they speak about, you don't care if it's a man or a woman who's building the business case. As long as it's profitable, that's what I'm going to fund. But then where is the gap? The gap is probably against skilling. How are we exuding confidence as women business leaders that my business is viable? It's potentially a skill gap. So I'm saying start thinking about those. With which I will conclude this session. I would say, I did bring up this word destiny, it's a powerful word. But I genuinely believe that we should be our best selves. And I do want to conclude and say, accelerate yourself. Thanks again for the opportunity. Thank you for listening to me. And hopefully this is helpful.